How can this one person have revolutionised cycling for millions of people? It's a bold claim, and she would be far too modest to make it herself. But I can, for she is Isla Rowntree, a former professional cyclist who started a bike brand making bikes for kids, and in so doing, genuinely revolutionised the experience of cycling from learning to ride right through to learning to race, not just for the millions of kids lucky enough to ride an Isla bike, but for all of those who benefited too from other bike brands upping their game as a result. Isla was a pioneer and one of the very few women founders and CEOs in the bike industry. The company that she started in 2005 has defined kids' bikes ever since by creating frames and parts that prioritised fit, lightweight and safety. Three things that were previously missing from bikes for young people. To find out more, I'm on my way to meet Isla. Who is she? How has she revolutionised the kids' bike industry? And what is she up to now? Hello.
Oh.
Hi. Isla. Nice to meet
Simon.
you.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, great
Welcome.
stuff. Well, thank you very much. So this is Islabikes now.
It is, yeah.
So what goes on here now then?
Well, as I'm sure you know, Islabikes was a children's bicycle brand for many, many years. Been going for 18 years. And at the end of last year, we stopped selling bikes altogether. It was a decision that was taken. But the entity continues, the business entity, and there are nearly 250,000 Islabikes out there that we sold over that 18 years. Now, I run a very small version of the operation, just selling spare parts to keep all the children on the road. So.
No way. What Isla truly revolutionised was designing kids' bikes that actually met the needs of kids, whether that's smaller diameter handlebars that little hands could actually grip, or brake levers that could be pulled with little fingers, or fast rolling agile tyres that could cover ground with ease despite little legs. And so this unit is now full of these game-changing parts ready to be shipped out. I always loved the fact that you use Kevlar beaded tyres.
Yeah, well, they're light and easy to get on and off. And this is a tread design that I did myself. They're a multi-surface tyre for what most children do on their bikes. Small diameter grips. Another area of design obsession many, many years ago of mine. There were several iterations of these. Right from the start of Islabikes in the early days, I worked out that you needed to put a plug-in underneath the grip, because when a bicycle falls over, the open end of the handlebar stamps a hole like a pastry cutter through the end of a grip. And a paediatrician from Bristol phoned me up in about year 2 of Islabikes, and he'd spotted that I had these. It was a paediatric surgeon that was fitting these underneath. The early version of grips, the bigger diameter bit used to break off, leaving the grips because it was too thin here. But he said, "You're the only people that do this, and can you encourage the rest of the industry to do it, because I operate on children that have fallen off onto the end of an open handlebar, and it often goes into their vital organs." And that was his job. And so I set about improving the grip design that I'd done. And you can see they've got the bigger end on them. And for the older children's bikes, it's not quite so big.
There's a nice pair of cyclocross tyres there. Is that your design as well?
Yep, it is, yeah.
What became clear to me within minutes of meeting Isla was just how much she loves bikes and riding, whether that's racing, recreation or transport. Like the bike that rides the few miles to the post office several times a week, complete with giant panniers and trailer. So that's a big trailer, and that's a single speed, right?
Yeah.
So you ride your single speed, a very beautiful single speed, with a
Yeah.
what, how many kilos worth?
I don't know, it's pretty overloaded. Mondays is the big day because people order over the weekend. I haven't quite finished loading it up today. There'll be another pannier on there, but...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
With the last few parcels packed up, we followed Isla on her laden single speed back into the local town of Ludlow, ready to head out on bikes ourselves. I wanted to get out not only because I love the riding around where Isla lives in the borders of England and Wales, but because it is such a treat to ride with pro and ex-pro cyclists. There is always something to learn from someone as accomplished as Isla. It's amazing up here, isn't it? Quite a climb. Where are we? Just for the viewers?
This is called High Vinnels, right here. So Ludlow's over there. You can see Titterston Clee over there.
And then that's
Wales. Yeah, right there.
And so we've ridden up on gravel today. But, I mean, you've ridden and raced all disciplines. Am I right in thinking that you medalled in a downhill national championship once?
If you go far enough back, yes, I did. Yeah, I think it was from 91.
And then, so since then, you raced all disciplines. What were you professional in?
I raced for rally, for team rally, and we were a mountain bike team.
Right.
But we also competed quite a lot on the road as well. Really to support our mountain bike racing, but there's some good roadies in the team. Yeah,
and how did you get from being a pro cyclist, pro mountain biker, to then starting Islabikes? Like, what was the process?
They were really, the pro cycling ran in parallel to my other careers, if you like. So I started in a bike shop when I was 16. Had already got a well embedded passion for bikes and the mechanical side as well as the actual cycling. I've always loved both. And through my early 20s, I made trailer bikes for children. Yeah, so that was throughout my 20s, and then I stopped doing that in order to race for rally. And it was like, can I get better if I do this full time? Was really the thing in my head. And I learned that actually I didn't really get any better. But it was a great experience with rally, and 2 years of going, I was got World Cups, and it was great. Rally shrunk their team. They actually removed all the women from their team, so that was kind of get a proper job now. It was actually my sister that said, you haven't got a degree, you've done this, you've got this sort of slightly itinerant career. You need to go and work for a big corporate and treat it as your degree.
Okay.
And my younger sister said that to me, and it was really inspired. And I thought, well, who can I work for in the area where I live? And Halford's head office was in Redditch, 25 miles away. And I worked there for nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
And eventually I went from running the spare parts range there, and that's what I was recruited for, to being responsible for pretty much the whole bike range.
Wow. And I could kind of almost see, potentially, the inspiration then, because Halford's, for a lot of people in the UK, is where they get their kids' bikes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so you were there looking at people buying these kids' bikes and thinking, that's not a good bike.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're absolutely right. It was in front of me at that point. And then the other key thing that happened at that point was my sister and my best friends. My best friends started having families. They'd had their first children. And so they were then getting to the point where who were they going to ask what first bike to get for their kids? And of course it was me. And at that point I'm like, I don't want my nephew and my nieces and my best friends children to ride on bikes like this. They're going to take up video games and football because they were so bad at that time. And I felt from a design point of view, I could so easily make them so much better. I mean, it wasn't rocket science at that point, it was a low bar. And it was that and my experience at Halford's, I knew where to go to get them made by then.
Well, because that feels...
And that's the key.
I was going to say, that feels like the leap of faith to presumably get on an aeroplane to Southeast Asia and go and find someone or people that could make everything for you.
But I was already then in the industry, and I knew which, I'd made a lot of contacts at Halford's. I knew how the system worked, if you like. So I knew where to go to ask, and actually had a lot of support from a few key manufacturers of components and bikes in the early stages, and was able to get it off the ground.
From the top of the mountain, it was time to follow this former mountain bike champion down some decidedly un-gravel-like descents into town. Isla had told me that she'd been back building frames again, and I was really keen to see what she'd been creating.
So.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a treasure trove, isn't it? So what has she been building? A lot. Mountain bikes mainly, beautifully made and spec'd single speeds for her home trails or events like the Highland 550. But also a bike for gravel racing, built with Isla's customary creativity and innovation. Just 7 kilos despite the steel frame, built to flex and using brakes from a time trial bike in order to do without drop bar shifters, which is something of a pet peeve of hers, given their one size doesn't really fit all approach.
It is quite flexy, I think, but...
That is aero, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is super aero. It's cool seeing all the bikes racked up and the creativity that goes into clearly like designing and experimenting must be something that you're super into as well as clearly very good at.
Well, can't help doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just happens whether you want it to or not, really, that side of things. Yeah.
But it must have been hard, like running a company and still presumably designing a lot of.
I mean, that shows insight from you, really. I think anybody that starts something from scratch, that's small, founder, entrepreneur, and is the designer as well, if that project is successful, that business is successful and grows, there becomes a point where there's a tension between those things. And what happens is the thing that you're good at, that you start out doing, that makes the business what it is, the time available for that gets squeezed by everything else.
Yeah.
And that's something that definitely happened for me.
It sort of strikes me like seeing the passion that you pour into it. And it always appeared that way with Isla bikes, particularly in like the quality of them, the fact that they last for such a long time. And one thing I was wanting to ask was the second-hand value of an Isla bike is really strong, isn't it? There's an incredible second-hand market. Was that ever something that you were concerned about as a business, the fact that so many traded hands, that they weren't buying them new?
Not concerned, and I think that the second-hand thing emerged very early on in the business. So as soon as the first child had grown out and the first bikes that we sold, they were exchanging hands for 2/3, 3/4 of the original price, and that, I always felt that was something to be celebrated. I think in the latter years of the business, or once the business had grown to a certain size and was established, 10 years ago, that the second-hand market became a competition for us, and I think that was recognised and perhaps seen as something as a threat at the time, but I say seen as, because I'm not saying I saw as, because actually I never really felt it like that. I just thought it's the more usage that these bikes get, the more years that they're in use, it's great for the environment. They'd been designed to be maintainable, so things like I didn't use plastic bushings, I refused to use plastic bushings in pedals and things like that, always proper bearings.
Do you ever look at other brands that are constantly sort of superseding their product lines and, they're not backwards compatible, so people constantly need to keep buying? Do you ever look at them and sort of wish they did things differently?
Yeah, I think that there is a view among some people that there's a cynical intent in changing products for the sake of it, or to make us spend more money. And I don't think that's actually true. I think the majority of people working in the bike industry are well-intentioned. They're genuinely trying to innovate and make something that they believe is better. I think it's the collective effect of that and some of those changes. I mean, I get driven mad by the number of bottom bracket and headset standards like everybody else. The number of tools that you have to have just to be able to service them. I mean, it's a barrier to entry to somebody becoming a mobile mechanic. Islabikes decided right from the outset not to have any model years, and that was a part of my, don't change it until there's something you're actually going to improve. Don't change it. As soon as you have an idea to make something better, put it on the next production run. Do it straight away. But if there wasn't anything to improve, then a model might run for several years without any significant changes.
Can I ask what comes next? For you, for Islabikes?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I've never had a planned career. I don't know what I really want to do when I grow up. But it's been pretty good fun so far. Yeah, mostly. I don't know. Opportunities will come along, and I'm not closed to things. I'm actually enjoying the place I'm in at the moment. I've had an emotionally quite challenging few years for various reasons, and I'm enjoying what we do. I'm enjoying my little spare parts business, doing something that I think is a good thing, and let that settle in, and then we'll see. I hope to remain healthy enough to carry on cycling and exploring the wonderful country that we live in as long as possible.
What we've yet to touch on in this video is why Islabikes stopped selling complete bikes. But it is a question that I'd asked earlier in the day. Can I ask why you sort of ceased selling bikes then?
It's a complicated and quite personal story and journey. And it's an area that going into running a business, I didn't think about at all, is what happens at the other end, because you don't really know where it's going to take you. But at some point, unless you want to do it forever, you've got to have an exit. And the typical way of exiting is to sell. I actually did a management buyout 3.5 years ago now. And that was, at that point, sort of the planned solution, and really so I could retire and go on to do other things. And in particular, I wanted to avoid a situation where, as my parents aged, that I would be torn between the needs of running a business and their care needs. But after a very difficult period in the cycle industry, which I'm sure you've spoken to many other players about, the MBO wasn't really working out. And again, I could have sold it, but by that point in time, perhaps it didn't have the value in it. And when you sell a business as the founder, they want a piece of you with it. It usually goes with the deal. You're going to work for us for another 3 years or another 5 years. That was an option, but not very palatable. And the other part of that I've always found really difficult to deal with is, if you sell your brand, and for better or worse, I put my name on it. So it's really personal. If you sell your brand, at some point, you're not going to be able to be involved in the design decisions anymore, or you've got to work for the new people. You can't have both. And my name's going to be on something that I'd be uncomfortable with. It's just an inevitability. And my bikes, as up here, sort of all the iterations of the Knox 16 4-year-old's bike, they're deeply personal. I've over the years, I've poured my emotional soul into those bikes. I really care. Right down in here about the tiny details of them, and to see a bike in 5 or 10 years time with my name on it that didn't sit with me, and I thought was not right. Somebody else would obviously think it was right, but I might not. But I found that really difficult.
Do you regard it as a courageous decision? I'm not sure how many other people would not sell. Do you know what I mean? I
don't want the decision to appear like it was all very well planned in advance, because I spent 18 months up until the end of this year absolutely agonising over which route to take and exploring different options with different advisors, and it was really tough. And actually, I think ultimately now, with the benefit of 6 months being able to just sort of step back and look at it, is a really good outcome. What I hope is that through Islabikes' 18 years, that loads of kids have had great experiences for our bikes and will continue to do so. And I'm actually really comfortable now. I absolutely love packing my parcels. I enjoy the process of doing it. I enjoy thinking that every time I stick a set of grips in a bag, that a bike's going to, be safe and usable again, or somebody's bought some new tyres. And there's all sorts of extraordinary things get ordered. I think bikes get bits, you will know in a garage or cyclists, bits disappear off bikes that aren't used for a while, don't they?
Yes, that's true, yeah.
How does that happen?
On the one hand, it feels like a real shame that Islabikes are no longer making and selling complete bikes, because they are great bikes, and great bikes deserve to be made. But on the other hand, my time with Isla has got me thinking about what it is to start and to own a company. As she said, how do you finish it? Why not burn bright, make great product, change an industry, and then step away with pride in your achievements? And make no mistake, the legacy lives on. There are, as she said, 250,000 bikes out there that's still on the road, teaching kids how to ride and helping them to fall in love with cycling. And yes, there are still crap kids' bikes being made, but the bar has definitely been raised. I, for one, will be hitting that thumbs up button to salute Isla for her achievements. And also, got to say a massive thank you for showing us her trails, her workshop, and also making us some cake.